In today's show, the Blazers host the best team in the NBA, and the Boston Celtics sure look the part. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, I want to talk about, or I am going to talk about it. Not only do I want to, but I plan on it. Blazers hosted the Celtics on Monday evening. You were listening to Tuesday, March 12th show. I appreciate you listening. Blazers played the Celtics. Celtics were somewhat shorthanded and still looked like one of the best teams in the NBA simply because they are. We'll get into that game, some extended thoughts on the Celtics, some thoughts on Scoot Henderson, who finally getting exactly what I asked for at the beginning of the year from Scoot, and I'm happy to see it. Deandre Ayton continues to be solid, probably the lone bright spots in this one for the Blazers. And then I want to close the show talking about role players. The Celtics won this game with some role players because their stars are so good. And as the Blazers move forward, I think that is a lesson that could maybe help color some of their team-building decisions, or at least is something to consider as, you hope they magically become the Celtics, right? They're going to go to 5 conference finals in 7 seasons or whatever it is. Let's do what we do, though. Let's get into our fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose this one 121-99. They were in the game early. Celtics got whatever they wanted offensively, but the Blazers hung in there. 37-28 after one. Anthony Simons and Scoot Henderson, who both start in the backcourt. Scoot Henderson cleared of his minutes restriction, off the injury report, ready to go as your starting point guard of the present. Him and Ant both have 7 in the first quarter. The Blazers scored 28 in that first quarter, but they gave up 37 on 56% shooting. But they're in the game. They're only down 9. Trailed by as many as 17 in the second quarter. But again, do what they do. They're only down 14 at the break, 52-66. And it kind of feels like it's slipping away at halftime, right? Like it feels it's not as bad as 17 or what it's going to swell to. But Deandre Ayton has 14 and 6 at the break. And it's like, you know what? The Celtics have gotten whatever they wanted. Jaylen Brown's outrageous. He has 17. But the Blazers are kind of like at least vaguely in the game and not getting like truly dominated. They've answered enough runs to make it relatively competitive, but they didn't close the second quarter particularly well. Coming to the third quarter, trailed by as many as 19 in the third. Looks like, again, the game is slipping away. You're playing the best team in the league, at least best record in the league. Like the Celtics are 49-14 coming into this one, and it looks like they're going to roll up 19, but the Blazers do what they do, hang around. 88-75 after 3. It's like, you know what? They're vaguely within striking distance, and they weren't. Lead got us up. The largest lead of the game, a minute 54 seconds left. A 3-pointer from Sam Hauser with just under 2 minutes left. Both teams, or Chauncey Billups takes time out. Both teams empty their bench, and we played a cool 2 minutes of garbage time, and the Celtics cruise 121-99. Blazers never threatened. They never, there was never a moment in the second half where you're like stopping a score and they're in this thing. But they didn't get shredded. And I think like part of me is tired of saying that. I'm going to be totally honest. Part of me is tired of like, hey, you know what? It could have been worse. But like as a Blazers staffer I was chatting with after the game said, like the fight matters. And I do think like, personally, just maybe from doing this a lot of times, it's like I don't talking about the fight and being like, you can feel good about this one feels disingenuous. I don't think you need to feel good about this one. I think you need to feel like this. The Celtics are a lot better than the Blazers. The end. Jaylen Brown, 17 in the first half, finished with 27. Jason Tatum had 26 with 8 dimes. 11 from Al Horford. He had 9 in the first quarter, though, hit 3 threes. Derek White, 11. Peyton Pritchard, 11. 22 for Sam Hauser off the bench. On the Blazers side, Deandre Ayton had 22 and 15. He continues just to be solid. He's getting it done. 17 for Anthony Simons, but it took him 18 shots. 13 for Scoot Henderson, took him 12 shots. 14 for Jeremy Grant, took him 14 shots. Blazers bench, Banton had 8, Duop, Reef had 8, Tumani had, Kamara had 8, and Matisse Thybulle had 5. Yeah, like the Jays, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, combined to shoot 3 of 16 from 3, and the Celtics cruised. Now imagine that team, that if you watch the game tonight, imagine that team adding an all defense level point guard at the point of attack and a 7'3", one of the best scoring big men in the league, who can bomb away from 3 and has developed into being very good at attacking switches at this stage in his career. No Kristaps Porzingis, no Drew Holiday, no problem. The Celtics are just really good. Like, this isn't why I'm not going to harp on the Blazers. Like, impressive fight to not get thrashed is because, like, the Celtics just kind of just did what they did and kept cruising. They just beat the Blazers driving 55. They said, whatever cruising speed is, we'll do it. We're happy to. But what I'm really struck by with the Celtics is they just don't run much stuff. Caitlin Cooper, one of the great basketball writers in the world, certainly one of the great basketball writers in America, who writes the newsletter, the Substack Basketball She Wrote, has helped me differentiate the idea between a play, a set, and an action. A play is something designed to get a specific shot. A set is kind of like a shape of something designed to get different options. And an action is just like set a down screen for him and get him free. And the Celtics just run a bunch of actions. They basically run no plays. Even when Joe Mazzulla stands up and calls stuff, he's like just calling like, hey, widen out a little bit and set a down screen. There was a play in the second half when it was supposed to be a wide pin down where Al Horford came from the top to set a down screen for Jaylen Brown to come up, like a wide zipper screen, if you really want to get deep into the terminology. But the Blazers were top blocking it, so Jaylen Brown said, well, we can't get into that. And so he just set a down screen he flipped the screen action, set a screen for Al Horford. He went up towards the ball and they got into a little pick and roll action with him and Jason Tatum. And I believe Tatum ended up missing a shot inside, but it was like, they were trying to just unlock one action to get something free. It didn't work. They just kept him moving. They just, as Chauncey Billups described it after the game, they just drive, kick, swing. Like, they barely run any plays, but it just makes sense. Some of it is just like the Jays are really good. Like Jaylen Brown absolutely bullied poor Anthony Simons in this game, and got to the rack after he wanted. And after the game, Jaylen Brown lamented that he shot too many threes. Like, I don't know why I shot 8 threes. I could get to the paint whenever I wanted. He took 29 shots and 0 field goal attempts. Weird game. He took 21 2-pointers and 0 field goal and 0 free throws. Weird game. But like, I am struck by how the Celtics don't have necessarily like intricate offense. What they have is an understanding of what they want to get done. They want to space, they want to shoot threes, they want to get into the paint and make you have to create an advantage, and then make you have to make some decisions and then spray it out. So either they're shooters, which they have at every position basically, except for when Luke Cornett plays, and let their big, strong creators force you to send help because you can't guard them one-on-one. Like, they share the ball, they play to their principles more than they play like a true offense, and they just run like simple actions. One of my complaints about why I'm mentioning this in part is like, one of my complaints about the Blazers this year is I think their offense is a little too vanilla. Sometimes it's like one little action to get into something. When you have talent and you have advantage creators, when you have guys who are just like, we're going to have to send more people to deal with that, you can run simpler stuff and get away with it. And teams with talent also run intricate offenses. Like, it exists on both ends of the spectrum. But the Celtics are unique in that they really don't run much. They really don't. And they beat you up because they just do what they do. And part of sort of preparing for this podcast is like, well, the Blazers didn't really shock the world. They kind of played exactly to the level you thought they would. And the Celtics didn't look incredible by any means. Like, their two best players kind of left some meat on the bone and they could have been even better. And yet, like, I came away thinking like, yeah, the Celtics could, like, You know why they're 50-14? Because they're freaking good, and they weren't even at full strength, and they weren't even playing at their, at sort of their highest gear. Like I said, beat him got to cruising speed at 55 and just kept it there. Hit cruise control and kept it there. That's a good basketball team. Let's talk a little about Scoot, a little about Deandre Ayton and others in the second segment, focusing on those two and kind of some odds and ends from this game. That's what we will do in the second segment. Join me there. First, I want to tell you that this next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Therapy can be a really useful exercise. It can be very valuable for you just to develop the tools to become the best version of yourself. Whether you're dealing with an acute traumatic event or you're just trying to navigate these sort of challenges and bumps and along the way of everyday life, you can benefit a lot from talking to a neutral third party, and a therapist can be exactly that. And whether you have, big problems, small problems, or a combination of the two, because life is challenging, just being able to talk to a neutral third party and have them help you develop the tools to work through what you're working with and become the best version of yourself can be just immensely valuable. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/lockedonnba. All right. Celtics are really good, and they just kind of do what they do. I think the knock on them is like that they are maybe too simple, and when the games get tight, the simplicity can kind of run up into them. Settling for jumps, having Jason Tatum settle for fadeaway jump shots, I think is the actual complaint. But I think what on the Blazers side is like they would, if you're not that good and you run simple stuff, it feels a little bit worse. But I don't think this was a game where I came away from thinking like, the Blazers offense, the Blazers coaching staff like held them back by any means. Their talent held them back. The Celtics are really good. DeAndre Ayton continues to just be solid. He misses 5 games. He has 30 and 19 in an overtime win. And then tonight he has 22 and 15. My personal biases against DA still exist. I am not without bias or without judgment here. I am not a neutral third party by any means. I'm just a third party, but he's taken 1-3 this year. He finally did it in the last game. I just kind of let it sit there. I wish there was a little more variety to his game. I wish he got to the free throw line and all those things. But at some point, this is a Michael problem. I got to appreciate what he does do well. And my man has great touch. He has great touch. For all of the sort of things that frustrate me when watching him, dude has great touch. He twice in this game dribbled from half court and then took a 15-foot pull-up cash. And it's easy looking jumper. He had a turnaround from the left block where he just barely hit the rim. Perfect swish. Dude has great touch. He's competitive on defense when he's engaged, and I think part of him being engaged on defense is that he's kind of getting to work and getting into the spots he wants to be. He's just been solid. I don't think tonight was like this incredible game from him, but he had 22 and 15. He's productive and solid, and he just, in the places that he wants to, in his comfort zones. Let me put it like that. His comfort zones, which is that sort of between 4 feet and 20 feet, and using his right hand to shoot hook shots. He's excellent. I think my complaint is that I wish he operated or attempted to operate outside his comfort zones. But at this point in the season, I'm gonna hang up that complaint. I'm gonna hang up that complaint until at least we'll call it April 15th. We'll give it a month because he's just been solid. He's been solid, and it's and picking nits on this particular team and DA specifically is just what is the value in it? dude has great touch. He does what he does. He was good in this game. Like I think he was pretty obviously the Blazers' best player. Speaking of stuff, I set this up because this is the stuff I have whined about, but will relent at this point section of the program. If you're a longtime listener, everyday listener, shout out to my everydayers, you know that like one of my complaints at one point in this season was that I wish Scoot Henderson just got kind of free run to fail. Like I wish they just gave him a bunch of minutes to fail when he was playing less and they were healthier and they were playing better players over him. It was like, yeah, I understand why they're doing it, but there's part of me that just like wants him to get 30 minutes to fail. Well, because of the like part of the season we're on and like the Blazers' health situation, they played this game again without Jabari Walker. Chris Murray got the start. Scoot, Ant, Chris Murray, Jeremy Grant, and Deandre Ayton. Chris did not play well and only played 19 minutes, and then they leaned on Matisse Thybulle and Toumani Camara mostly in those spots. But like, there was a time early in the year when Scoot was not getting this opportunity, when it was kind of bothering me a little bit. But now it's like the necessity, and also just like they're committed to it in a way that I appreciate. And Scoot Henderson, I thought, struggled and played 33 minutes, and that's exactly what I've been asking for all season long. So like, take it. You got it. You got to eat your cake when they serve it to you. So like, zero complaints about the opportunity for Scoot. I thought his first shift he was really, really good. He had a bucket inside with his right hand. He hit a pull-up three. He had a crossover on Jaylen Brown where it was like, oh, I thought that was a Scoot we would see all year, where he kind of leans his shoulders like he's going to go up to the top of the keys on the far right wing, leans his shoulders like he's going to go to the top of the key, and then quick cross left to right, gets to his right hand, drives baseline, draws a foul. It's like, whew, that guy's fast. And that was kind of the Scoot I thought we would see a whole bunch of. It's just like too quick. And obviously he gets past people, but he doesn't do that, where it's like Jaylen Brown, who's a very good defensive player, had no chance to stay in front of him. I thought he was really good in that first shift, 7 points. I thought when he came back and in the middle two quarters, particularly second and third quarters, it's like, you don't have it today. Like you don't have it today. But that's like part of the learning experience. I thought specifically on 3 separate occasions, Scoot Henderson tried to drive against Luke Cornett, and Luke Cornett is not very good, but he is very big, and he's really strong. Deandre Ayton was joking about it in the locker room after the game, that he had to go get a lift in after the game ended, which is pretty common for NBA players. They get lifts in after the game. I think, to me, that's wild, but it's very common across the league. He said he had to go lift something because Luke Cornett was too strong. Luke Cornett is big. He's big and strong, and 3 separate occasions, twice in the first half, once in the second half, Scoot Henderson just drove right into Luke Cornett, didn't create enough separation, and either threw one wildly around the tree limbs, and then got kind of blocked and caught up in the length of a very large center. And it's just like that kind of decision making continues to be a problem for Scoot, where it's like, I'm gonna go here, and then like he's made up his mind and he's kind of caught in a bad spot, and he doesn't have the craft right now to slow down or to kind of like read it a step ahead and make a secondary read. Sometimes he draws fouls there, and I thought maybe one of them he could have drawn a foul, but there was nobody committed fouls in this game. 12 free throws attempts for the Celtics, 11 for the Blazers, 23 combined free throws. The game flew by. On the official box score, an hour and 53 minutes, under 2 hours. That game flew by because nobody shot free throws. But Scoot's gotta, it's just like he's young and he's figuring it out. And I thought tonight against one of the best teams in the league, looked like he was young and figuring it out. No Drew Holiday in this one. He would have been in some real trouble if it was Drew Holiday and Derek White in the backcourt. He got a lot of Peyton Pritchard on him. Peyton Pritchard, competitive defender, but a small person. Like, he gets after it on defense, and I was intrigued today by Fast PP's aggression on defense. Like, he really gets up into people's chest and gets up into their shirt and like plays defense like a competitive style. He's just a little, and it's not, Scoot couldn't dominate that matchup, and they're a good defensive team, period. Boston's they're excellent. And yeah, I thought Scoot was, he had 7 points in the first quarter and 6 points for the remainder of the game. I thought he was bad in the final 3 quarters, particularly the middle 2 quarters. Finished with 5 turnovers, but he did have 8 assists. Like, he's a natural playmaker, and he looks to make plays. And this is exactly what I want. I want to see Scoot fail, and I want to see Scoot have the opportunity to play against the best teams and fail and learn on the job, because I really believe strongly that you can develop a lot of skills in the summertime. And I think Scoot can add to his skills, and he can get stronger, and he can have a better understanding, and he can work with people to help him develop some skill stuff and become a better shooter and a better finisher and all those things. But the reps, the seeing the patterns of how defenses play you, learning guys' tendencies. Okay, Kornet always he plays vertical. Okay, he's just gigantic. He's going to play vertical. Here's what I can do. I can slow down. I can take a floater. I can go hard into his chest, and maybe that close off that space. Sort of the different things, different strategies. But I think you need the reps, and I'm really glad for the remainder of the season that Scoot is going to get those reps. Watching this Celtics team, and particularly watching Sam Hauser rain in 6 threes, finish with 22 points off the bench, and kind of just end the game late as the Celtics were finally pulling away after kind of holding the Blazers at bay for most of the game. I was struck by, or an idea kind of came to me. Role players look better with better teammates. I want to talk about that and how it can apply to the Blazers roster decisions ahead this summer, because your coworkers matter and they make life easier for you, and the role really matters for role players. That's what we'll talk about to close the show. First, let's talk about the all-new lineup of Nissan's SUVs for 2024. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take that adventure to the next level, like the 2024 Nissan Rogue. Perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built right into your always updating assistant that you can call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of having to connect your phone. Instead, you got Google Assistant, Google Maps, and the Google Play Store built in to a 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system that's always going to be updating and always going to get you where you need to go and play the tunes along the way, as well as all the other things you might need to look up while you're making moves in the 2024 Nissan Rogue, the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. What about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder? It's got room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. Bring all your friends and all their stuff and go have some fun with 284 horsepower, up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. I mentioned Luke Kornet and Sam Hauser in that third segment. To me, they were good in this game, and I straight up don't think if Luke Kornet just switched jerseys, I think he'd be largely unplayable for the Portland Trail Blazers in this exact game. Literally could have switched teams at halftime. I think he'd be unplayable. I think he would be behind. He would be behind Duop Reith because he'd be what he does just straight up would not be useful, because the role matters for role players. I for the Celtics, it is so narrow what Luke Kornet is asked to do. Roll to the rim, catch lobs. Caught 2 of them, technically 3, but one of them was off the rim for a rebound. Take it up with the official scorers. But caught 3 lobs in the first half. Be big, get offensive rebounds, roll to the rim, and contest shots at the rim. They don't pass it to him on short rolls. He doesn't have to make decisions there. He's not getting post ups. He's maybe running a little dribble handoff stuff, but he's not putting the ball on the floor. He is running rim to rim. He is playing defense, and he is his limited skill set is put into a very narrow ask. And if you're a long-time listener to the program, yet again, shout out to my everydayers. You know that I think role players can get overexposed, right? It happened with Drew Eubanks a bunch last year, where it's he's pretty good in a 12-minute role, and then when he plays a 17-minute role, it's and then when he plays a 28-minute role, it's okay, that's too much. That's too much Drew Eubanks. And then you start to feel like the things that he does well in 12 minutes, he can't do well there because the ask is so much more. And when the ask is narrow, boy, does it help. Sam Hauser can shoot. He'd be able to shoot on any team. This is a funny thing about me. One time I texted a friend, why do the Celtics Why do the Celtics have two Nick Stauskises? Because they got Nick Stauskas, my man, Sauce Castillo, and then I was watching them, and both Nick Stauskas and this other gentleman, number 30 in the green, were also on the court. I was like, they got two Stauskises? Why would you need two? Nick Stauskas no longer in the league. Sam Hauser in the league. Rains threes. Dude can really shoot it. 8 of 12, 22 points off the bench for the Celtics tonight. The guy, he changed the game. He made sure it was over in the fourth quarter. His skill set could travel, right? His skill set, he could shoot. That goes anywhere. He could have switched teams at halftime, a la Luke Cornett, and Blazers would have been happy to have him. But his life would have been harder because good players make things easier. The role matters for role players, right? Like, because the Celtics just do what they do. They run really simple actions, and then they try to take advantage. They try to find a weak spot for a lot of it. I didn't mention this too much earlier, but like they were just hunting and then bullying Anthony Simons, particularly the Jays. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum were like, yeah, I don't think number one can guard me, and just bullying him a little bit. They tried to Scoot too, but they were more successful getting Ant's man into the pick and roll and then just attacking there and either just backing Anthony Simons right down into the paint or Blazers send help, kick, swing is what they do. Drive, kick, swing. But like, because on this particular team, Hauser is always the beneficiary of the swing, and he's almost never, I mean, he shared the court with O'Shea Brissett, and Luke Cornett a little bit tonight. So maybe he was the fourth best offensive player briefly on some lineups, maybe even the third best, very briefly. But like, he's usually, when the Celtics are full strength, the fifth best offensive player every time he steps out on the court. And it's so much easier for him to do what he does as the fifth best offensive player because his job's always going to be either keep the ball moving on the perimeter or shoot it when you get it. And it's just a quick decision. Do I pass quick or do I shoot quick? Like he's not going to be asked to run pick and roll. He's not going to be asked to dribble. He's not going to be put in situations where it's going to be hard for him. If they do double team, he's going to be the beneficiary off a double team from their stars and say, I'm going to shoot it. I'm going to punish double teams by being the guy who's ready to shoot. He has enough size to do a little bit other stuff, but mostly he's going to bomb away from three. And I'm thinking about this with the Blazers roster because I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say I don't think the Blazers have any players on their team that are as good as Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. I don't think the Blazers have anyone as good on their team as Drew Holiday or Derek White or Kristaps Porzingis. I think at best the Blazers have the sixth best player on the court if these two teams were at full strength, maybe worse. But like, it is. As the Blazers move forward, the first thing you got to identify when you're rebuilding is the foundation, right? It's hard to move forward with a rebuild without who you're building around. But the Blazers have a bunch of intriguing role players, right? And if Toumani Camara was on a team that was where the role was simplified for him, right? If it was just like he's a really good cutter, but the Blazers don't have a lot of good passers. But if they're on a team that had more playmakers and more advantage creators, and Toumani could just cut, crash the offensive glass, occasionally shoot a standstill three, but pretty much just be, just like a guy who well-timed darts into the paint, either to get missed shots or to as a cutter. Boy, would he be more valuable. Like, the role would be so much better for Toumani if it was a little more defined. I think on the right team with like a spacing five, I think Jabari Walker could be a really, really interesting role player because he knows how to pass. He's a good decision maker in the short roll. He's a competitive rebounder. He's a competitive defender. He's just not very good on offense right now. But if it was simpler for him in the right role, like if he could play next to Kristaps Porzingis, right, and he was the role guy and Kristaps was the pop guy, he'd be incredibly valuable, right? Like the role matters. I'm not exactly sure what Chris Murray can play defense. I'm not exactly sure how to maximize him on offense right now. He's not quite there yet, but same thing. Like it could be simpler for him. I think, I'm thinking about all these guys as the Blazers move forward. One of the things that the biggest thing they need to define before they sort of get there is like the foundational pieces, and they don't have that. And there's a relatively good chance that player's not even on the roster yet. Right. But like, as they move forward, I think they have done a very good job at finding guys who can be long-term role players in the league, guys who have intriguing skill sets and all those things. And if the role was a little more dialed as the Blazers up their talent slowly but surely over the next few seasons, then the intriguing role players they have right now could turn into like dynamite, really valuable role players. But you got to get there first. I think it's a pretty good idea to try to find players as good as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and then build your team around them. That seems like Celtics seem to have done a pretty smart move. The Blazers should try to emulate that as best they can. But I came away from this game thinking like, man, it's so simple when it's simple. And like people like to say that stars make other players better. And for the most part, I think that's not true. But what they do is make the game easier. And the Blazers need to find a player that can make the game easier. So the decisions, you have fewer, like your decision tree has less branches. And also just like, so what you do can be magnified because you rarely are asked to play to your weaknesses when you're a role player. And I think I think the Blazers have a lot of guys like in a better situation that people would appreciate way more. Jabari Walker and then Tumani Kamara specifically, is who I'm really thinking of here. Like in a better situation, be like, oh yeah, those dudes are really helpful. But when the ask is bigger and when the needs are bigger, it just role players they can get outsized quickly, and it can be a challenge. Just a team building thought as we move forward in this season. I am constantly and always obsessed with what is next. Tomorrow's show, come back and listen to it. Nate Duncan of the Dunked On Basketball podcast is on the program, joins the program, and we will talk all things Blazers present and future. You won't want to miss that one. Nate is whip smart and has some wonderful thoughts to share on the Blazers. Make sure you check that one out. Later this week, Blazers play the Hawks. They play the Knicks. We'll cover both of those games. We do what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I'll talk to you soon.